we go. Hope everybody was able to get a little bit of something. This is a permanent review committee of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks. Today's date is January 7th. I'm going to call the meeting to order with the roll call. Commissioner Hughes.
Present.
Commissioner Jekovich.
Present.
Commissioner Aguirre.
Present.
And Commissioner Osmond is not here yet. Or she may have dropped off. I am Commissioner Wong. We do have a quorum. Earlier this year, Governor Pritzker signed Public Act 101-0640, making certain amendments to the Open Meetings Act so that we, along with other boards and commissions, can continue to host virtual meetings during this COVID-19 public health emergency, provided that certain conditions are met. One of those conditions is that I, head of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks, determined that an in-person meeting of the Commission of Chicago Landmarks is not practical or prudent. I want to make sure that our virtual meetings meets all the conditions of the Open Meetings Act as amended. Therefore, I want to state, pursuant to the newly created Section 7E2 of the Open Meetings Act, that I've determined that an in-person meeting of this permanent review committee of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks is not practical or prudent. I also made a determination pursuant to the newly created Section 7E5 that because of the disasters declared by the governor, that it is unfeasible for at least one member of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks or its chief administrative officer or its chief legal officer to be physically present at the meeting place. Pursuant to a resolution adopted by the Commission on Chicago Landmarks on June 4th, 2020, regarding Chairman's emergency rule-making powers, I issued emergency rules governing the conduct of remote public commission meetings and provisions for remote public participation effective June 23rd, 2020, in response to the COVID-19 emergency. These rules were posted on the Commission's website. In line with these emergency rules, today's regular permanent review committee meeting is a virtual meeting being simulcast to the general public via live streaming. Permanent review meetings have been held virtually since May of last year. Meetings are structured to minimize the chances for technical difficulties. Members of the general public have been encouraged to submit written statements in advance of the meeting, and any received have been posted on the Commission's website and are available for public view during the virtual meeting at www.chicago.gov/CCL. Members of the public desiring to speak at today's meetings were required to register before the meeting. Applicants and the representatives, as well as aldermen, were asked to contact staff if they desire to speak, and they will be able to do so after the staff presentation on a specific project. At this time, nobody has registered to speak on any of the agenda items, so we'll now go through the agenda. First item is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, the regular meeting of December 3rd. I'd like to request a motion to approve those minutes, please.
I recommend it.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Alderman.
Commissioner Osmond. And a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Aguirre?
Yes.
Commissioner Jekovich?
Yes.
And I ratify that. The motion carries. The minutes from the previous meeting of December 3rd were approved. The first item on today's agenda is the property located at 310 North Peoria and 311 North Sangamon. This is in the 27th Ward, the Fulton Randolph Market District. The project is a proposed demolition of an existing building at 311 North Sangamon, construction of a 13-story hotel tower on the site, and the rehabilitation of 310 North Peoria, including a rooftop addition and other changes. And Emily, if you could show us what's going on with this.
Definitely. Thank you, Commissioner. So as you mentioned, this is in the Fulton Randolph Market District. It's on Wayman Street in between Peoria and Sangamon. Okay, so the applicant proposes to demolish the existing building located at 311 North Sangamon. You can see it highlighted in blue there. It's a 2-story masonry building, preliminarily determined to be non-contributing to the Fulton Market District designation report, and construct a new 13-story, 296-key hotel building with first-floor commercial space on the site. This project also includes the rehab of the 4-story meatpacking building next door, which is a contributing building highlighted in purple. And this building will contain first floor commercial space with office use above. So we got a couple parts to this. First, we'll go through the demolition of the building at 311 Sangamon. And as a reminder, we've done these before. These are the criteria for determining whether or not a building in a landmark district is contributing. So the building at 311 North Sangamon is 2-story. It takes up the entirety of the lot. It's currently vacant, but most recently has been a restaurant. Now, we weren't able to find any permit records for this property, but based on Sanborn maps and the building's construction, it is estimated to have been sometime in the early 1900s. The 1916 Sanborn map shows the building is 2 stories and vacant, but by the 1950 map, the building is labeled as a 1-story sausage factory. This change in height of 16 feet is just one of the substantial alterations to the building. As described in detail in the Fulton Randolph designation report, this district was developed primarily as a wholesale food and meatpacking market with industrial and warehouse buildings. The general architectural characteristics include corbelled brick, projecting cornices, decorative piers, and ornamental metal. As you can see, the subject property does not exhibit any of these architectural features associated with the district. No decorative or projecting features exist on the building, and any original characteristics have been removed sometime in the past. Okay, next. So while Sanborn maps indicate that the underlying building is brick masonry construction, the entirety of the building has either been parged over with a shotcrete coating or covered with some sort of ephes product. It's hard to tell. Either way, it leaves no indication of the masonry underneath, and the outer coat has been painted numerous times, and the building no longer exhibits the characteristics commonly associated with the district. As a reminder, the building no longer retains its original 2nd floor, and while it's potentially possible to remove the thick shotcrete parge coat, it likely would compromise whatever original material may exist underneath and could not be easily reversed. So, oh, go back, sorry. So our recommendations for this is that the commission find that this property is non-contributing to the character of the Fulton Randolph Market District, and its demolition will not be an adverse effect, and recommend that the commission recommend to City Council approval of the demolition in accordance with section 2-120-825 of the Municipal Code. All right, on to the new building. So the proposed new 13-story building has a height of 133 foot 4 inches to the top of the main parapet. Above the main roof line is a setback rooftop addition / mechanical enclosure, approximately 87 feet long and 17 feet wide, which provides access to a roof deck. The maximum height to the top of this mechanical closure is 149.4. So in 2019, the committee approved a 12-story new construction building at 1043 West Fulton Market. That approved building height was 138 feet 4 inches to the top of the parapet. So in order to allow a direct comparison between this building, which is the maximum height approved at PRC, and the proposed building, the applicant provided massing studies taken from various vantage points along Fulton Market. The main mass of the structure is largely masonry and metal panel and within the height range of previous approvals. The roof deck access and mechanical enclosure is clad only in a medium gray metal panel, and the additional height is not a noticeable impact from views within the district. Okay. So the Fulton Randolph Market District has a very irregular boundary, predominantly encompassing the historic structures relevant to the food processing and distribution history of the area. You can see there marked in red our site. So the applicant included multiple exhibits showing comparable height both within the district and outside of the district boundaries, but directly adjacent area. The building's location at the edge of the district, surrounded by undesignated tall towers, some of which reach 250 feet or higher, help to give some additional context to the proposal, and staff recommends the massing as proposed. So historic buildings in this district entirely fill their lots for the most part without any side yards or front yards. And this proposed building observes these characteristics to maintain the historic street wall condition. The new building was designed to have a more contemporary facade solution meant to complement the existing building and preserve the integrity of the neighborhood's character with a decidedly modern interpretation. So the predominant design theme here is a grid of vertical piers and horizontal spandrels compatible with historic warehouse buildings within the district. On the north facade, which you see here, the squares of the grid spanning 2 floors are bisected horizontally and vertically by wide medium gray metal panels. Each of these squares encompasses 4 windows, and the window design takes cues from the neighboring 310 Peoria building next door. They have very similar glazing heights. So the lines of the grid itself are largely constructed of a light kind of tannish gray brick, chosen as a respectful pairing to, again, the neighbor on Peoria. Directly down the center of the brick lines is another withe of brick, this one much darker gray and inset deeper than the lighter brick. This combination in depths and colors gives the facade texture and visual interest while also drawing inspiration from the historic steel casement windows found within the district. And this grid motif is utilized throughout the building. The secondary design theme used on the building is predominantly on the south and east elevations that face the bulk of the historic district. So this motif is simple in materials. It's really only using glass and that light gray brick again, that are built into narrow columns that stagger in depth and reverse every 2 floors. The south elevation, while secondary to the main hotel in design, is still thoughtfully organized into 3 protruding bays, and the large light wells in between the bays are inset to align with the rooftop enclosure, reading as one solid mass. So the entrance to this new hotel is located on the west elevation and is marked with a metal paneled canopy that cantilevers out over the sidewalk along Sangamon. The proposed canopy is 2 feet thick, spans the entirety of the entrance, and projects out 12 feet 7 inches over the public way. The sliding entrance doors are surrounded by wide glass side lights and a wide glass transom, and all the remainder of storefronts are along the north elevation, which you will see here. So Wayman Street has a gentle slope to it. So while the storefronts are all the same width, each panel is approximately 3 feet, they get taller the further east they are on the building. The panels are an operable bifold system, and when opened, a minimal glass railing keeps guests from falling onto the sloping grade below. Above the bifold panels are transom windows topped with a black channel that runs along the north elevation. This meets up with the historic canopy edge on 310 Peoria, and it'll create a strong unifying feature between the 2 buildings. To reduce the overall height, some of the mechanical functions had to be relocated to the first floor. So there are also just simple, sleek horizontal louvers proposed above the storefront system to accommodate the required airflow. Okay, so as noted before, the proposed materials are 2 different shades of gray brick, glass, and gray metal panel. So staff recommends that the commission find that the project does not have an adverse effect with the following conditions that I have mostly been through before, I believe. So now we're ready to move on to the rehab part of the project. So this building was built in 1893 for the Wolf, Sayre and Heller Company, which was a meatpacking company and manufacturer of butcher supplies. Since the district was designated, the Permit Review Committee has reviewed 2 different proposals for this building, both for hotel use. While a few elements of the proposals were carried out, of note is an elevator enclosure was built on the roof, and the non-historic first floor addition you see in the first 2 photos was removed. But ultimately, neither of those projects moved forward, obviously. So this current proposal is for office space with an internal connection to the proposed new hotel next door. Many aspects of the project follow the approval conditions of the previous projects. But as I mentioned, differences are the footprints in the 5th floor rooftop addition and changes to the ground level entrance and loading dock. As I mentioned earlier, for many years, there was this non-historic enclosure located on the loading dock area of the building. The applicant provided an additional photograph you can see taken by Richard Nickel, likely in the early 70s, showing a similar kind of structure. But when this non-historic structure was removed in 2014, the strong vertical elements of the original Adler and Sullivan architecture on the ground floor was revealed. So this removal restored the building much closer to its original condition, exposed the historic raised dock and the historic canopy. As this non-historic element no longer exists, it would be inappropriate to reconceal the area with another enclosure. So the applicant proposes to remove the brick and plywood board infill for 14 openings on the first floor of the north elevation. 7 window openings will be restored to the original sizes based on the location of the lintel arches and stone sills. That's on the first floor. And these will have new double hung windows. The remaining window openings will have their sill drop to accommodate 4 doors to serve the restaurant space. Now, the 3-panel windows that are on the upper floors are non-historic. Most of them will remain, however, 14 are proposed to be replaced. So because in total 33 windows are being remained, that's less than half of the 14 is less than half of the windows that will be replaced. So they're choosing to match the non-historic 3-panel that's will be already on the building. So in cases where a limited number of new windows are inserted, the commission has previously approved windows to match the overall existing window configuration. You'll also see here the steel canopy supported with diagonal metal ties. So as I kind of pointed out earlier, this currently bisects the first floor windows, indicating that it's probably not original, but it was a very, very early addition. So, and to avoid blocking these, the applicant proposes to retain the canopy, but lift it 4 feet above its current position. You can see the light pink line moving up to the dark pink line. Because there's evidence that this was a later addition, staff can recommend its relocation, provided the drawings show how the steel will be removed, retained, and reinstalled. And this all matches the 2018 approval. The applicant's also proposing to extend the length of the canopy, approximately just a foot, so that it will cover the entirety of the dock. Based on canopy footprints in the Sanborn fire insurance maps, this looks appropriate. Staff recommends the modifications are compatible and can be approved as proposed. So due to a previous committee approval, an elevator enclosure was constructed in 2015. It's that kind of purpley blue color. And there is also an existing egress stair enclosure that spans all the floors in the southeast corner, and that's dark purple. Similar to this 2018 proposal, the current proposal includes a 5th floor addition with outdoor terrace areas. The setback is approximately 8 feet from both the east and north facades, which meet the recommendations in the Fulton Randolph Market Design Guidelines. The height of the rooftop addition is approximately 11 foot 6 inches, Again, compatible with the historic floor heights and matching the previous approval. The applicant's also proposing a roof deck. The proposed railing system has been designed to match the setbacks approved in 2018, approximately 3 feet from the outer face of the parapet, and staff recommends approval of all of this as proposed. So a glass vestibule is proposed to enclose these 2 bays highlighted in purple on the western end of the loading dock. This will serve as the entrance to the building. A similar vestibule was approved in 2018. However, in the previous approvals, the ADA ramp ran outside of the building, parallel to the dock. And in this proposal, the entrance is at grade level. And then within the vestibule, there will be a lift and a small stairway to make up the approximately 3 foot 10 inch height difference between grade and the historic loading dock height. So this vestibule is actually a bit shorter than the previous approval. The majority of the structure was designed so that, you know, with a minimum number of mullions and clear vision glass so that it can retain the visibility of the historic facade from the right of way as much as possible. You can see these strong vertical piers coming down, and we wanted to make sure that those can also be seen as clearly as possible. In the final western bay, the applicant proposes an open stair, which provides access to the basement below. A small open metal fence will separate the stair here from the sidewalk. So you can see here kind of the existing conditions of that loading dock. So in order to accommodate the site plan, the proposal includes the removal of this existing dock because the current configuration is non-historic. So the proposed loading dock footprint matches the footprint of the original dock. The applicant is also proposing to raise the lowered areas of the dock so that the entire area can be on one level, and staff recommends approval of this as proposed. So as stated in the Fulton Randolph Market District designation, these raised sidewalk loading docks are designated features in the ordinance. So traditionally, loading docks within the district were open and are highly characteristic of the district's industrial nature. The applicant is proposing to enclose the originally open air loading dock so as to be able to use it as a permanent solution for additional seating space year round. It would function much like garage doors, as you can see, so could be opened in better weather and closed when it's cold. As discussed earlier, the previous ground floor enclosure was a non-historic element that no longer exists. When removed, the original Adler and Sullivan detailing was revealed. Adding a new obstructing feature in this location does not meet the Secretary of the Interior standards or Commission guidelines, which state that inappropriate changes may not be retained if they are to be rebuilt or substantially altered. Furthermore, staff is concerned with the potential precedent this could set for the rest of the district. Some of the most character-defining features in a meatpacking district are the open loading docks and steel canopies. The canopies in particular are very prevalent throughout the district, and if they were all to be enclosed, the character would be substantially changed. So these are our staff recommendations for the rehabilitation. I believe I went through all of these. Materials should be reviewed by staff at time of permit application. And then on this last slide, I just have a wall of text, which is all of the conditions together. So the alderman for this project has indicated preliminary support. It's moving forward with the plan development process, and it's going to be heard at the January Plan Commission meeting. The most recent community meeting occurred December 10th, and similar to previous meetings, no major issues were raised at that time. So hopefully I can answer questions, or Rolando Acosta, the attorney, and I believe the architects as well are here.
Thank you, Emily. Does the committee have any questions of Emily at this time? These are a lot of recommendations from
it's a lot.
The demolition and the new construction, as well as the rehabilitation of the former building.
Yeah, it's a big project.
Yes. Commissioner Osmond, please.
Yes, my question is the choice of materials for the new building, that the meatpacking district is predominantly red brick or some yellow brick, and the Sullivan building is an existing yellow brick building. Why was the gray chosen as the color?
I can send that to the architect if that would be good. David is here, I believe.
Actually, Howard is also here. So either David or Howard. I don't know if they've been.
David, why don't you take this one?
Yeah.
There they are.
Yeah, so the thought with
David,
a
actually,
great brick.
David,
Hi, my name's
thank you.
yeah, my name's David Gens with Hirsch MPG and the
Thank you.
design architect for the project. So the thought with our color palette is we didn't want to try and match the 100-odd-year-old brick on the existing Peoria building. And the gray brick is a very warm gray brick. The difference is fairly subtle. It's a fairly subtle but distinct difference between the existing Chicago Common brick. We wanted to give the new building a slightly different identity than the historic building. The gray velour brick that we selected is a very quiet, neutral brick that I would concede is not red or a Chicago Common brick, but still has a great deal of warmth and subtle variation to it that we think gives some character with the district.
I guess my concern is gray brick has never been a particularly successful color in of Chicago buildings with our gray days. So I'm just I am just a bit concerned about that and hope that it's as warm as what you're saying it's going to be.
Yeah, and Commissioner, just something again to really realize and focus on is that darker brick is really just going to be for those inside sort of.
Thank you for Emily. Thank you for clarifying that, and that was perhaps a poor explanation on my part. The dark gray brick is a accent brick that highlights the 2-story by 2 hotel key grid that would be only used in 4-inch increments. The predominant brick being used on the building that you're seeing in all the renderings is the very warm gray velour brick that's in the middle, which you can see matches more closely to the existing Chicago Common.
Thank you.
I was calling for questions of Emily, but having none, Rolando, I'm going to give you the floor if you'd like.
You, Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year.
Glad to be here. I'd like to start by thanking Emily for all her hard work on this large project. She's done a lot of reviewing, made a lot of comments. We've done our best to address every single one of them. And from that long list of conditions, we agree with everything Emily has said, except with respect to the enclosure on the 310 Peoria building, which is, I don't know if Emily wants to put back up the long list, but just to highlight, it's the number one condition under the rehabilitation of 310 North Peoria relating to the enclosure of this area north of the original building.
And I believe you have a small presentation you'd like to show too, is that correct?
Sure, so if you can put mine up, that'd be fine. So I'll just go through it. I knew that Emily had the lion's share of the images, so I didn't want to bore you with a lot of slides here, but just to assist me so that you can visualize as I speak. So we have, it's not like we are adverse to changes. We've made many changes to this building as we've gone through the review process in what is over a 2-year process here on 2 different versions of this development. We've reduced the building in height by 2 stories, 40 feet overall from the top of the parapet. The architecture that you see today is rather different than the architecture that Hirsch's office started with, and it really tries to respond to the comments from staff with respect to the district and the appropriate facade treatments. This area on the ground floor for this particular building is very different than the rest of the areas within the district that have canopies. And I think the first thing I want to point out is that the canopy is, we all believe, and I believe Emily agrees with this, is not an original feature of this building. The main reason for believing that is that this building was, everyone believes, designed by Adler Sullivan, and that canopy, where placed, obstructs the upper arches of the first floor windows. And it's hard to believe that an architect of that stature would have placed a canopy to have obstructed the top portions of windows on a facade he has just designed. So the canopy is a later added addition to this building. Exactly when it occurred, we at least don't know for sure. So we don't know if it's right after the building was built or of more recent vintage. The proposal, it's also, unlike the canopies in the district, it's over private property. So the images that were previously shown by Emily that showed you other canopies in the district, all are canopies extending over the public right-of-way. Ours is not extending over the public right-of-way. It's extending over private property. This building on its north facade was set back from the north property line. And this canopy or roof structure, as you'll hear from me in a second, was extended over the private property. So from a precedential value, it has very little, because you cannot enclose the other canopies in the district. You'd be obstructing the sidewalk. This is unique in that it's the only place where there is a canopy, if that's what it is, extending from a building that could be enclosed without obstructing the sidewalk, because it's wholly within private property. So what I think the Hirsch's office has designed and has proposed is a very gentle enclosure, predominantly glass, with a grid pattern that reads consistently and allows you to see through. And that's why I place this image, because even at a reduced scale, you can see right through the glass and observe all of the original features of the facade. Going to my next slide, it's really close up. So you have a close up view. And what's being proposed as an enclosure is really a fixed eastern wall, but the canopy structure itself is 100% exposed. You can see it on this photo or this rendering. Along the north facade, it's really a series of overhead doors. Garage doors is not a bad description of them, although these are very nice ones, that are intended to be open most of the time. This is an extension of the restaurant seating area that it's immediately behind the wall. It's intended to be for al fresco dining. So from an operations perspective, we prefer for all to be open, but we also have to recognize that we live in Chicago and the weather gets a bit inclement every so often, and sometimes without much warning. And it is helpful for a restaurant in its operations to be able to enclose that area in those moments, few or many, where there is inclement weather. The next two photos or renderings really show you, this is a partial enclosure of just the corner. And then the next image shows you what it would look like completely enclosed. The other point I'd like to make is what's referred to as a raised loading dock didn't really exist in the fashion that you see in this image. It existed as a platform at the west end of the building. The actual regular loading dock for this building is on Peoria. You can see it on the side of the building and on Peoria frontage. This was not probably the main loading area because it had a series of much smaller openings, windows actually, as originally designed, along the ground floor, unlike a traditional meatpacking building where along its street facade, it had predominantly what I would call garage doors to allow the loading trucks to load and unload directly from the street. So this is an attempt to recreate what is, I believe, a more consistent historic condition, even though it's not clear that it is an original condition in terms of the raised, I call it a platform. The sidewalk, again, all on private property, the sidewalk, you can see where the people are walking, This does not extend over the sidewalk. The original canopy roof structure does not extend over the sidewalk. This canopy, this enclosure, consistent with Secretary of Interior guidelines and commission rules, can be removed without any damage to this canopy. It is not, it's literally add-on of doors and one side panel to it. So if for some reason it had to be removed in the future, it could be removed without damage to the roof structure. And it's also highly transparent. As you can even see from this image, you can get a good perception of the wall immediately behind the glass doors when they are closed. Moving to my next slide. So these are 3 images of this building. And I was told that the original built image on the left, which appears to be the oldest image that we can find of this building in terms of a photograph. We also haven't been able to find any records as to when the addition, as I like to call it, was built, when the canopy was built. We know when the building was built. The photograph on your left, which was part of Emily's presentation, we thought was more from the 60s than the 70s. Reality is we don't really know, but it is possible that what we're now calling a canopy was really a roof over an addition that had what I would call relatively flimsy walls. There's no presence of a foundation other than a slab. And the walls of the structure that you see were more of demising walls rather than structural walls. You actually can see the parapet on the Peoria side extending above what we're calling the canopy on both the original picture on the left and the 2006 image, which is in the center. The far right image is what existed on the property through about 2017. The historic period for this district ends in 1964. It is possible that this structure, which admittedly by all of us, is not something to keep. This is not an attractive addition. Could have been built actually during the relevant period. And certainly it was there at the time that this district was created. We think what we're trying to do is almost the best of both worlds, which is create something that evokes what was traditional in the district in terms of a raised dock and a canopy structure that can be seen, but also evoked what really became of this area, or maybe was originally this area, which is it added usable interior space permanently in the past, temporarily in the now proposed version with the louver doors. So trying to get the best of both worlds. It's, we believe, an enclosure that is consistent with the district. It brings the building out to the property line. If we can go to the next slide. And I have to thank Emily because she added this for me since I spent the last couple of days just driving around checking out the district and found this. This is the Ace Hotel at 311 North Morgan, approximately a block west of the site. It's new construction, clearly not historic building, within the district, approved through all the approval process. And an effort was made to establish the typical street frontage or consistent street facade by bringing these metal elements out to the property line and creating something that starts to look like our enclosure. We have windows, they don't. But from a passerby, it establishes a traditional street facade continuity that is common in the district, that is not common to this building because this building was set back. So we're actually don't believe we are inconsistent with the district. We don't believe we are damaging the landmark building in any way, shape, or form. We think we have developed a pretty good middle ground between having it open air, where its utility is temporal, and having the ability to enclose it temporarily for inclement weather in a fashion that allows you to see the landmark with vertical elements that can be easily removed without damaging the canopy, if that is considered significant, and that is also consistent with the streetscape view of having a building that's on the property edge on Wayman and consistent with what it's planned to the east. I'm sorry, to the west with the new building, where there it's bifold, here it's garage, but essentially opening where you can have a all season restaurant area. That is a quick summary of our position. I do have Howard Hirsch and David Jenk from Hirsch and Associates. I also have here Relu Stan, who is a representative of the owner of the property. And I'm happy to entertain any questions or comments the commission may have. Or Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Acosta. Does the committee have any questions for the design team or the owner and his representatives?
I do.
Commissioner Gary, please.
Thank you. Just a quick question, and you have, there might be a backstory of this, the long process that you described. I'm just curious about, was there ever any consideration to recreate or retain or something the vertical elements in the facade? They're very strong in the old photograph that you showed. I think side by side, that slide that you presented, that's such an interesting and conspicuous part of the character of that facade. So I'm just curious, what was the evaluation of retaining or actually not retaining that part of the building character?
So what I'd like to do is go back to my slide, if I could, Commissioner, to make sure that we understand what you're asking. So I don't know if that is doable. I think it's the fifth slide in the package. So this is it.
Right. So the vertical elements on the windows, is it just the forest view on the historic image that is depicting a very, very strong shadow? And it, I don't know.
Lines.
The shadow lines, they're not, it's exactly the same? Okay.
I think it's exactly the same as far as we know.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, we're recreating part of it. So over the years, if you look at the picture on the left and you look at the picture in the middle, a whole row of windows was removed. You can see it that you have 2 bays, you have 5 bays opening before you get to the large central vertical column. And in the 2006 picture, you have 4 bays of windows with another blank in between.
Yep, there's a central bay removed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, is the force, this is a very forced projection of that elevation. That's why probably it's given that
Why don't you go back to the elevation?
visual.
Go to the first slide. There.
So yeah, I'll take a shot at answering that question. We did look at that initially of trying to keep this strong vertical element as the primary design. And what happens is it doesn't translate to the scale of the building as you might think it would. It becomes very heavy, becomes very sort of overly vertical, and it actually takes away from the existing building. So I think what we're trying to do here was to pick elements which are really these 2-story window elements and the way they're designed that pick up on the scale of the existing building, but give the new building its own scale that is reflective of its size and its use as a hotel versus what was done before. Instead of trying to copy it and replace it, it was to honor it in a certain way and to come up with something that was unique for itself. And again, we went through 3 or 4 different design, including with Emily, going through different versions of it. And this one is the one that we all believed best reflected the design of the building and complemented the existing building.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
For my understanding, you know, when I look at this image, and I know that the one thing that's kind of deceiving when you look at this in elevation is that these are not on the same plane, but in elevation, it makes you, when you say you're kind of like paying homage to the old building, that nothing is lining up with the building at all. And so I think that's what I'm struggling with. And, you know, it could be that, you know, you don't have it aligned throughout the whole grid that you're creating, but almost like some sort of acknowledgement of the building, of the historic building, just at, you know, on those first 4 floors somehow. This is something that I'm kind of trying to understand.
So the one thing that we agree with that, one thing that's probably not obvious and we didn't mention in our presentation is the floor-to-floor height needs of a hotel are very different from the floor-to-floor height needs of office users. The office users need a taller floor-to-floor, and the hotel rooms can deal with a shorter floor-to-floor height. So while they intermittently align on some floors, most floors don't connect. On the first floor and at the pedestrian experience, though, that something that was briefly touched upon was that we did think it was important to have some aspect connected to projects in a meaningful way, and that was that bringing that canopy line through the design of the storefront on the ground floor. So that historic canopy line that where that channel would basically come across all the way through the existing building and visually tie the two together at the pedestrian level.
You can see it better in an image that Emily had of a close-up of this.
No, I can see that one. That's the line that I like looking at. I'm trying to find others.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? I had a couple of them. I guess let me start with the easiest one. How are you dealing with the mechanical equipment? Is that on the roof? How's that?
So it's being done in, yeah, I think it was briefly touched on, but for the basement and first floor mechanical needs, we would handle that for the most part locally, which is why we have that continuous band of louvers in each bay on the north facade above that channel that we were just talking about, so that we have enough area in different places for exhaust and fresh air intake. And then there would be a cooling tower on the roof, as well as exhaust fans for the toilet.
Of the tower or the historic building?
Of the tower, The cooling tower would be on the roof deck level at the top.
Okay. But that's
the mechanical space the mechanical space at the top of the building is smaller than what you would typically need, because we brought several aspects of it and done it localized right where the first floor and basement are, instead of having one central system.
Okay, and so that's set back enough you won't be able to see it.
So the cooling tower is located on the south elevation, set back from the parapet, back where the elevator and stair enclosure come up. You can see in our renderings, you do see a small corner of it from the street. We didn't want to pretend that we showed it in on all the massing we shared with everyone who's reviewed the project.
Okay. Mr. Acosta, I always love that you're very compelling about your presentations. I am going to argue with you on this, that the fact that you mentioned that, you know, the original canopy was probably not original. Why would Sullivan put a canopy that covered up the arches? But that being said, what you're proposing here is really a building addition. If you think about it, it's not a canopy anymore. It's a building addition to the facade of this building, and you know, it does make a difference there. I would, you know, I appreciate the al fresco, you know, dining, especially during these times. And I find it amusing that you brought up the Ace Hotel. That's one of our projects. And so, but in all essence, that's really what it is. Even though you mentioned that it can be taken apart without damaging the building, it is in essence a building addition. That's my position on that. And then finally, I guess I'm going to also agree with Commissioner Osmond on the materials on the tower. That gray, if you guys, I don't know, I'm not sold on that, but you know, that's my comment. Commissioner Hughes, you had some comments. Or go ahead, Mr. Acosta, if you were.
I just wanted to say, I don't necessarily disagree with you that this is a building addition. Part of my point is, I believe it could have been a building addition from the beginning, because we don't have any photos that show just a canopy on this building. We've only have, the oldest photo we have shows a roof over a structure. Now, we can all speculate as to whether it was a canopy and then got some walls, or whether it was originally built this way with that roof supported from the building, as opposed to as you would from the perimeter walls, given the nature of the perimeter walls. So that's why I was saying that there is a debate to be had, not that we have to have it now because it'll take too long, as to whether what we're doing is really evoking the state of this building in the, you know, the historic period, the latter part of it, the 60s and 50s and 60s, when, remember, this was not just this particular property was not just a meatpacking building. It had certainly butchering and meatpacking here, but the company that built it, Wolf, Sayer and Heller, also sold butchering equipment. So this building is kind of unique. The typical meatpacking building is only a couple of stories. This one is 4 stories, probably originally 5 stories. And they could have seen, as things went more retail in the 50s, with direct sales to the grocers, a need for more office space. Built in addition, what remains of that addition today is the roof. We're calling it a canopy, but up till 2017, it was an addition. So you could consider this as us replicating the addition in a more consistent fashion, and in a way that tries to bridge that difference between just a canopy or an addition that totally obstructs, like the other one did, the facade of the building.
Hey, just a couple things. I believe that if Joyce, if you could go back to my presentation, if that's possible. On the original Sanborn maps, there is an outline that pretty much shows it's not a building there. It's a canopy. It's not included for the fire insurance map purposes. It's not a building on those maps.
Just got to go further back.
Yeah, it's back. It's back on the other building.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, well,
there we go. Oh. You know, it's kind of hard to see, but you can definitely see it on this 1916. The actual building and the building annotations are all within the building footprint.
Yes, I can see that. I mean, I saw that from the original. The 1950s one actually, and this is not the colored version, I've looked at the colored version, actually shows an area in yellow, and where today or a few years ago would have been the addition, which indicated a wood structure, because yellow in a Sanborn means wood as opposed to pink, lying in this area where you can see the stairs coming down.
Mm-hmm.
So that shows it from 1950 on.
So if that's true, that's showing an addition on the north facade of this building from 1950s on. Again, 1964 is the relevant period for the closing of additions to buildings that become relevant. And this one just happened to be a particularly ugly one. So no one's disputing that perhaps knocking it down was a good idea, other than by knocking it down, it seems that we were left with a roof and everyone focusing on the roof as a canopy. Had we been here in 2017 with this proposal, I think the commission would have felt better, because we would be replacing ugly with something that we think is attractive.
It would still kind of go under if you're substantially rebuilding it, an inappropriate addition, it shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be retained or substantially altered.
But additions can be made to buildings under the rules, so long as they don't obstruct the landmark. Glass doesn't do that.
What this is doing.
Pardon me?
which we feel this is doing.
And we disagree. You can see right through it.
Okay.
I mean, that's.
Can I add also just my experience with this property, just to let you know that I had an opportunity to be in the building years ago when we first started reviewing a proposal for this property. At that time, it was a different ownership. That particular owner contemplated a Class L application. And as part of that review, I was able to be on the interior of this space and did see the kind of the scarring and the sidewalls of what existed prior to the removal of that enclosure, and clearly could see the horizontal members that formed that raised area that we're talking about, the almost 4 foot or thereabouts, and how that basically tied into the face of the building. And we also, based on the investigation that was done at the site, determined based on physical evidence that the canopy above was truly a canopy. It existed prior to that enclosure that we were looking at previously. So it wasn't a roof of that enclosure. And we do have images from that investigation. So from day one, staff's opinion and recommendations were that the canopy was an older feature to the property, and that the addition enclosure was really just a very ad hoc wood paneled kind of enclosure that was added, and certainly not in any way significant. And its removal was something that we explained to the property owner at the time, that he had the ability to modify it somewhat, upgrade it without structurally removing it, and it would meet the guidelines because he was at that point grandfathered. But if he removes it, that staff's recommendation would continue to be that it couldn't come back. And I do want to also just state that yes, commission does approve additions, but they typically are on the rears of properties. In this case, we have guidelines about rooftop additions, obviously setbacks. We are obviously going through all of that evaluation, but this is arguably a primary facade of the building, and putting an addition on it is where staff's concern also comes from. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Commissioner Hughes, you had your hand up.
I just want to say that this project, I agree with Commissioner Ozma's comments. The colors do feel very monochromatic and just bland, if I'm being honest. I also think that there's a feel to this neighborhood. A lot of the new construction that's coming in is just very faceless. And it really feels that way with this project. And I don't want to get into personal opinions or anything, but I really wish that there was a wow factor or something that pays homage to what's existing there. I know that building is not conforming and can be removed, and that's fine, but it obviously has a lot of context, adds a lot of context to this area. I know that myself, a lot of people that I know have been to the Fulton Market Kitchen. And so it just feels like we did the absolute kind of standard, what's going to make us the most money in a hotel design placement for a building here. And I wish it was taken a step further on the design side.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Okay, we have heard it all.
I'm going to just add an opinion, a consideration from the side of the addition to the building on the north about opacity. I think it was argued by Mr. Acosta, the fact that, it's only glass, but I think the rendering, the imagery provided also showcases that the reflection plays a really strong role in the experience from the street and the character and all that. So I do feel like the enclosure does bring that presence of a solid. And I'm concerned about that. It does feel that the volume that it presents specifically from that view, it's very prominent. So I don't know. I don't agree the glass it's that flexible in its presence. I do think it's a very, very strong barrier visually, physically. And the top left image here exemplifies that very clearly, where you have the enclosure that is open and the one that is closed. So I do think this is a very, very strong boundary with the sidewalk condition. I know it's private property, but I do agree with Diana on this one about it represents the main access to the building, and it becomes basically the new facade.
Thank you, Commissioner Aguirre. Are there any further questions or comments regarding this? If not, I'd like to call for a motion to adopt the staff recommendations for the project. Is there a motion?
Are we including in that additional color studies should be done for the masonry?
You could do that if you want to make a motion to do that. That'd be great.
I motion that we add that additional color studies be done on the masonry for the new building.
Is that something that you would like staff to work on, or is that something that you'd like the commission to weigh in on? If so, I will delegate you to do that.
I will. I'm happy to take a look at it.
Okay, that'll be great. Okay, there's a motion on the table to approve the staff recommendations with the further study of the masonry.
I will second that motion.
And Commissioner Osmond seconds. Commissioner Aguirre?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
And I am agreeing also. Unanimously, we approve that motion. So.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time and consideration.
You bet. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care. The next item on the agenda is the property located at 3431 South Indiana in the Black Metropolis, Bronzeville District. This is a proposed construction of a new 2-story single-family residence clad with masonry and a detached rear 2-car garage with an alley access. And Joyce, I think you have this one.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject property located at 3431 South Indiana is currently a vacant lot in the Black Metropolis Bronzeville District. This is a multiple property district comprising of 9 non-contiguous properties, with the property location shown in the district map in the middle of this slide. The buildings included in this district represent an important era in African-American history in Chicago. The structures that make up the district reflect their unified development theme and represent the social, economic, and culture of Chicago's African-Americans in the areas centered at 35th Street and South State Street from 1910 to 1925. The applicant is proposing to construct a new raised 2-story single-family home clad with masonry and a detached 2-car garage with alley access. Okay. The 2 lots on South Indiana Avenue that are part of the district are shown here. The subject property, which is the vacant lot at 3431 South Indiana, and the adjacent Chicago Defender building at 3433 to 37 South Indiana. The buildings immediately to the north and south, which are outside of the district, are 2-story residential buildings. The lot historically contained a 2-story masonry dwelling shown in the newspaper photo on the left, As evidenced in Sanborn maps, this building was here as early as 1912 and later served as offices for the adjacent Chicago Defender building on the south. The house had a one-story masonry addition built at the rear and a two-story frame connection that linked it to the Defender building. The dates that all the structures on the site were demolished is not known. It is possible that the now vacant lot was included in the district since the building that was historically there provided office space for the Defender building. Okay. The proposed new building has a front setback of 20 feet, which is consistent to other residential buildings on the same side of the block. The side elevations are set back 3 feet on the north and 4 feet on the south. And a two-car garage clad in vinyl siding and a hip roof is proposed to be located at the rear of the lot with alley access and is not visible from the public right of way. The proposed new building is a raised two-story single-family residence, as I mentioned before, which is also consistent to the other residential buildings on the same side of the block. The front facade will be clad in face brick in a red-brown mix with stone accent bands and a stone cornice. The entrance features a metal stair that leads up to a panel door with a simple metal canopy above. The face brick wraps around 4 feet to the side elevations, which continues on to be brown fiber cement horizontal siding. The proposed building respects the general historic and architectural characteristics associated with the subject property and with the adjacent residential buildings on the block. Staff recommends that the committee find that the project meets the criteria set forth in the Commission's rules and regulations and the Commission's guidelines for alterations to historic buildings and new construction. Therefore, the project will not have an adverse effect on the significant historical and architectural features of the Landmark District and shall approve the project as submitted. The applicant has reviewed the project with the alderman, who also supported the zoning change for this lot. The property owner, Tom Boney, is here, and that concludes my presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Does the committee have any questions for Joyce at this time? Seeing none, would the applicant like to make a statement? Mr. Boney?
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, hello everyone. I'd just like to thank Joyce for her help with this, and I look forward to getting started on this project.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Boney? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a motion, request a motion to adopt the staff recommendations for this project. Is there a...
So move.
So moved by Commissioner Gary. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Osman. Commissioner Jakovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
And I'm in agreement as well. The motion carries. Mr. Boney, good luck. Thank you. Next project on the agenda is the property located at 3361 South Prairie. This is in the Calumet Giles Prairie District. Proposed construction of a two-story single-family residence clad with masonry and fiber cement siding and a detached rear three-car garage with alley access. And Larry, I think this is yours.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Calumet Giles Prairie District was designated a landmark district in 1988. The historic buildings in the district exhibit a range of architectural styles that characterized residential construction during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, as well as distinctive architectural detailing and craftsmanship. A variety of building types were historically constructed in the district, including large freestanding single-family residences, attached row houses, and flat buildings. Subject property is a double lot, 48 feet wide and 123 feet deep. The applicant proposes to construct a single-family home. The commission considers the immediate historic context in evaluating the compatibility of proposed new construction. The subject lot is located mid-block on the 3300 block of South Prairie Avenue. Immediately north of the subject is a frame cottage with an unusually deep setback from the front property line. Further north, there is a combination of two-story historic and new construction, as well as three-story new construction. To the south of the subject property is an isolated row house and a mix of new and historic construction ranging from 2 to 3 stories. As proposed, the new construction is compatible with the historic setbacks found within the district. The new single-family home is proposed to be 35 feet tall to the top of the ridge and 30 feet to the spring point of the mansard roof as measured from grade. This is consistent with historic buildings on the block. The home has a raised stoop, 4 feet 8 inches above grade, also consistent with historic stoop heights. There are 3 historic attached row houses on the block, 2 3-story structures which contain 3 residences, and 1 2-story building with 6 attached residences. The home is proposed to be 33 feet wide. Typically, historic detached buildings on this block are generally narrow, ranging from 19 feet wide to 22 feet wide. The applicant has expanded their context to include other buildings within the district, which they feel are compatible to the width of the proposed building. So here are some examples of both recent construction that was approved by the commission on the left and some historic buildings within the district. Also fairly consistent in width, either as wide as the proposed 33-foot wide building or wider. So for that reason, staff supports the proposed 33-foot wide building on this particular parcel. The design incorporates double triangular gables with a mansard roof. The center portion is slightly inset, separating the 2 triangular elements and providing a vertical orientation. The windows are punched openings containing double hung windows with transom windows above. The first floor has a triple ganged window and the second floor double. The entrance has a projecting metal canopy and the stairs are masonry with open metal railings. The front door utilizes a transom window and has a stone surround. Wide stone water tables are shown above the basement level windows and below the second floor windows. Overall, the design is compatible with historic buildings within the district. Staff does recommend that dimension window and door details be included with the permit plans for staff review and approval. The building uses standard modular size face brick on the front facade with a 15-foot finished return on the north elevation and a 12-foot 8-inch finished return on the south elevation. The remainder of the facades are proposed to be clad in fiber cement siding, varying from 8-inch lap exposure at the foundation to 4-inch lap exposure for the upper floors. Previously, the commission has approved of new construction with face materials wrapping around the secondary elevation in varying depths. This treatment, in combination with an adjacent building, will somewhat screen the change in materials. In this case, the unusually deep setback of the frame cottage to the north and its low height will make that north elevation somewhat visible. That adjacent home does utilize wood clapboard siding, and the applicant maintains that their choice of material is intended to be compatible. The south elevation is screened by a brick-clad chimney, as well as an adjacent building of comparable height and setback. The applicant is proposing to use simulated slate shingles for the mansard roof, and the proposed brick is a sort of a dark red Cabernet, which is a red-brown color. Although the mortar color isn't noted, it appears to be light in color. The artificial slate is proposed to be black, and the fiber cement siding is to be iron gray with a smooth finish. A 1-story 3-car garage at the rear of the property is also proposed to be clad with that same smooth finish fiber cement siding, although it will be minimally visible from the public right-of-way. The stone appears to be a gray Indiana limestone. Staff does recommend that samples of the proposed materials be submitted for staff review and approval prior to order and installation. We are recommending approval with those conditions I outlined in my presentation. I also want to mention that the community group has issued a letter of support, and that was included in your packet. And this proposal has also been reviewed by the Alderman's office, although they have not submitted a letter. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions for me, I believe the owner and their architect are on the call as well.
Thank you, Larry. Larry, could you leave your presentation up for a sec? Does the committee have any questions for Larry at this time? Seeing none. You said the applicant was here?
I believe so. They were
earlier. Christina, Michael.
Oh, they're there.
Yep, I'm here. My name's Damar. I just wanted to thank you, Larry, working with you. Appreciate all the feedback you've given us and partnership to create a design that we agreed upon that was compatible for the area. So we're excited to begin on this home for us.
Does the committee have any questions of the applicant? Seeing none, I actually, Larry, if you could go back one slide, please. I just want to make mention of this. I actually go back one more slide to the examples that were put forth. And I'm looking at the top right, some of the historic buildings that have been put forth and unfortunately demolished in this district. It's just been, it's a shame. And okay, if you could go to the next slide. I guess the comment I'm going to make is I would wish that the architecture would just escalate a little bit more. I look at this and I get to stress that the graystones and these beautiful graystones and some of the historic buildings with the amount of articulation have been demolished and being replaced with, you know, this meets the criteria, but it is not the best architecture in the world either. And I would hope that moving forward, and particularly in this district, that we could start to improve upon that. And with that point, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the staff recommendations. Is there a motion?
So move. I want to just, echo the sentiment, Commissioner Wong, and yeah, I'll either second or motion.
Commissioner Osmond, you moved?
Yes, that's fine. And I was going to move with the condition, just like you, seconding what you were saying, Commissioner Wong and Commissioner Aguirre, that, these neighborhoods are beginning to feel like very suburbanite areas. And I think we really have to look for what the character of these neighborhoods were and how we restore it. So I think we should be looking at, are there design guidelines that we can be providing staff to provide with owners in these areas?
Thank you. All right, so Commissioner Osmond made the motion. Commissioner Gary seconded. Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Jakovich?
Yes.
And I approve it as well. That it's approved unanimously. Good luck. I will hope that next project you take on in this neighborhood gets a little better. Thank you. Next project is located at, wait a minute, which one was that? Next project is 3411 South Prairie in the Calumet-Giles Prairie District also. This is a proposed construction of a two-story single-family residence clad with masonry and a detached two-car garage with alley access. Okay, Commissioner Joyce.
Yes.
You could show us what's going on there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing to construct a single-family residence on a vacant lot in the Calumet-Giles Prairie District. The historic buildings in the district exhibit a range of architectural styles that characterize residential construction during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, as well as distinctive architectural detailing and craftsmanship. Narrow building proportions and 2 to 4 story building heights, as well as distinctive detailing and predominant use of masonry are consistent historic characteristics of the district. Variety of building types were historically constructed in the district, including historic large freestanding single-family residence, attached row houses, and flat buildings. Over the years, deterioration of individual buildings has resulted in demolition of historic structures, leaving large sections of vacant lots. Okay. The building that was originally located on the subject property was the first house in the series of 6 attached 3-story row houses. According to Sanborn maps, sometime after 1950, the house located on the subject lot was demolished and has been vacant ever since. The lot is approximately 19 foot 6 inches wide and 123 foot deep. The applicant is proposing a 12 foot 9 inch front yard setback to the projecting bay and 0 side setbacks. A detached 1-story 2-car garage is proposed to be located at the rear of the lot, which will not be visible from the public right away. The proposed new building is a 2-story single-family residence. As mentioned before, the house spans the entire width of the lot. The windows on both floors are 6 foot 6 inches tall and feature a fixed center window flanked by double hung windows, separated by 4-inch mullions. The first floor windows also incorporate transom windows that are 1 foot 8 inches tall and separated with a 4-inch transom bar. This window type, configuration, and size is consistent with windows on adjacent buildings. For example, the windows on the building located immediately to the north at 3409 South Prairie are 6 foot 2 inches tall, and the windows at 3355 South Prairie are 8 feet tall. The windows on the building immediately to the south at 3417 South Prairie also incorporate transoms above the windows. Staff recommends that the windows on the front facade shall be wood or wood-clad windows with a design and profile that are consistent with the general characteristics of a historic wood window. The building is proposed to be 32 foot 9 inches tall to the top of the parapet, which is consistent with historic buildings on the block. The proposed stoop height is 3 foot 2 inches. While the proposed stoop height is lower than the immediately adjacent buildings, it is still appropriate as there are other buildings on the block that have similar stoop heights, such as 2 feet at 3353 and 3355 South Prairie, shown here in the block elevation at the top left, which is right over here, and 3 feet at 3445 South Prairie at the bottom middle of the block, which is shown over here. The applicant is proposing a contemporary design that respects the general historic and architectural characteristics associated with the district, using materials that are consistent with the historic buildings within the district. The proposed front facade is clad with a mix of brown brick with a projecting rectangular bay clad with smooth limestone panels. The cornice on the main part of the building and on the projecting bay is simple in design and constructed out of aluminum. The color of the cornice is black and matches the finish of the windows and the metal canopy over the entrance. Staff recommends that the committee find that the project will not have an adverse effect and to approve the project with the condition that the windows on the front facade shall be wood or wood clad and to provide detailed drawings for staff review and approval. The Gap Community Housing Committee has reviewed the project and submitted a letter of approval, which was received after the packets were submitted. This concludes my presentation. The architect is here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Does the committee have any questions of Joyce this time? If not, the owner is here, or the applicant?
The architect.
Oh, Commissioner Hughes, did you say you had a?
I think my question is more for the owner.
Okay.
So I can let them speak first.
Okay.
Commissioner, actually, may I ask a question?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just noticing, and I'm sorry, I'm just noticing this, the rendering that we see here shows the front facade from property line to property line. But the site plan, I think, shows that the front is not going from property line to property line. I just want to confirm which is the accurate.
You know, Deanna, if you can see the dashed line here, that adjacent.
That's the adjacent building?
Yeah.
Okay, that explains it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, that's clarified. Would the applicant like to make a statement?
Thomas Home here from PMPC Architects. I just want to say thank you to Joyce for working with us, especially during the holidays. You did a great job and you made this process very enjoyable, and I appreciate everything you're doing with working with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does Commissioner Hughes, you had a question? for the architect.
Yeah, my question is about this, I guess it's not called a bay window when it's square, but this window addition on the front and its proximity to the bay window of the adjacent property. It looks like that person can like raise their window up and like touch the other facade. Is that, how are you guys addressing that? It looks, it doesn't look.
Joyce, do you have a front elevation?
Yeah, let me go back. There we go.
Yes. So yeah, these the new windows, I'm assuming there's not windows on the side facing that adjacent building, but the bay windows that are adjacent to this front extrusion of the property looks really close. And I'm not sure if this is a typical condition for residences throughout the city.
I feel that it's just the given restrictions that we have with the lot line building. The owner is not here. We did propose, moving it in a little bit so to get the bay or the protrusion off of the lot line. I don't know if this is the correct thing to say, but within right, I guess this is what the client wants on his lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was there a, did you guys look at an option to reverse it? I mean, that basically would reverse the floor plan.
Oh, to kind of mirror it, you mean?
Yes. Can you go back to the other drawing?
There we go.
I think with
if you put the stair, you're saying put the stair on the north side of the building or towards the north.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything would flip.
I see what you're saying.
I would have to go back through our studies. I recall there was an issue with, the plan layouts. We tried it, but it was something that came up. I can't think of it at the moment. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Well, like I said, I'm assuming you guys don't have any windows on that side facing the gable to the neighboring property, right?
Correct. We do not.
Okay.
I'm gonna look for a floor plan if you wanted to know what that looked like.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that there's, I mean, it's really hard to see. I just have opened a document. It's really hard to see from the 3D views, but there's one that shows
Where's
there's
the
just
back?
a few feet. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, there's two windows at the kitchen towards the back, as well as the bedrooms on the upper floor. But nothing on the all right, Commissioner Hughes, does that answer your question or?
Yeah, it does. I see
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant? If none, I'd like to request a motion to approve the staff recommendations. Anybody? I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Osman. Commissioner Jekovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Aguirre.
Yes.
All right. The motion carries unanimously. Mr. Holmes, thank you. And good luck with your client.
Thank you.
The next and final project today is located at 6759 South Bennett. This is in Jackson Park Highlands District. The proposed replacement of non-historic asphalt shingle on the main house an original clay tile on a garage roof with new composite barrel tile. This is Emily's, if you will.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. So as noted, this is in the Jackson Park Highlands District. If you go to the next slide. So the subject property consists of two different structures. It's the main residence and then a detached garage. Clay tile roofs are highly characteristic of the Jackson Park Highlands District, and the property's garage still retains its original green glaze French tile. The house had its original roofing removed sometime in the past and is currently covered in a green colored asphalt shingle. So the garage roof at the subject property still retains its historic French clay roofing tiles, as mentioned. The tiles have a distinct profile and color. From photographs of the roof provided by the applicant, the tiles themselves appear to be in generally good condition, almost all of which retain their original green glaze. Interior garage photos, however, show that there are multiple instances of significant water damage. The applicant has also submitted a condition assessment prepared by their roofing contractor. The assessment states that the garage roof system is in poor condition due to overall age, and that several leaks are occurring at roofing penetrations, which has caused the roof deck to rot in several places. The document also states that due to water damage, the roof deck and deck supports will likely require partial replacement. So the owner is proposing to fully replace the original tiles with a composite tile called Brava Spanish barrel tile in a green finish. Before we go to the next slide, I just want you to note the differences between barrel and French tile profiles for roofs. Okay. So here they are together. The applicant provided one of the historic roof tiles along with information on the proposed replacement tiles for comparison. The historic interlocking clay tiles are approximately 9 by 16.5 inches, 1 1/4 inch thick, and have an overall depth of 2 1/4 inch. They also have those 2 deep grooves you can see on the top. Cut sheets of the Brava composite tile show that the proposed replacement tiles have a different profile that is not a close match to the historic. They are larger in overall size, 13 by 16.5 inches, with a narrower thickness. And while the overall depth is similar, the profile difference between barrel tile and French tile is significant. The Permit Review Committee has reviewed composite tiles as a replacement product in the Jackson Park Highlands District before. In 2016, the committee approved the replacement of the severely deteriorated tile roof at 6900 South Bennett with a composite roof tile that was a closer match to the scalloped appearance of French tiles. In comparison, the Brava replacement product being proposed for the subject property does not approximate the texture, scale, profile, and color of the historic tiles and is not in compliance with the Commission's guidelines. The Secretary of the Interior Preservation Brief on clay tile states that clay tile systems often fail far before the tiles themselves. The fastening system can break down through rotting or corrosion over time. The deterioration of metal flashing, valleys, and gutters can also lead to the failure of a roofing system through water infiltration at locations such as chimneys or skylights. As you can note, the subject property has many chimneys on the garage. Staff recommends that the owner consider repairing the garage roof and retaining the historic clay tiles if at all possible. Alternatively, should complete replacement be necessary, staff recommends that a product be selected that has a closer profile, finish, and color match to the historic tiles, similar to what was previously approved. So for the main house, as I mentioned, sometimes in the past, the original clay French tiles were removed and replaced with a green asphalt shingle. The applicant's proposing to remove the non-historic shingles and replace them with the same Brava composite barrel tile proposed for the garage. Staff believes that the main house historically had the same French tile roof as the garage. Presumably, the owner wishes to install matching tiles on the main house and the garage to once again unify the appearance of the property. Therefore, staff recommends that the new tiles for the home also be a product that matches a closer profile, finish, and color to the historic tiles as the garage. Alternatively, because the tiles are already gone, the owner may install architectural grade asphalt shingles as a replacement on the main house, since the historic tiles no longer exist. So these are our staff recommendations. A letter of support from the Jackson Park Highlands Association was included in your packet, and I believe it was sent out to you this morning as well. And the owners and the roofing contractor are here if you have any questions, or me too.
Thank you, Emily. Does the committee have any questions for Emily?
Just a quick question.
Yep.
Emily, in the reference case that you mentioned as the replacement or repair of the tiles, was it successful? Can you just speak to that very briefly? The one that you referenced.
I will say I could be wrong, but my understanding is that they ended up not doing that. It didn't end up getting installed. So that was.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hughes, you had something?
During this process, was there consideration for manufacturers that create like custom molds of existing tile? Did anybody explore that as an option?
I don't know. The owners might be able to answer that better. I don't know if that was explored. You know, we mentioned that we had a problem with the barrel profile as opposed to the French tile profile, but they wanted to move forward with this one and just kind of see what you guys thought. So I think that's definitely probably a possibility. But
yeah, I'm asking because the original profile seems so unique and kind of one of a kind, and a very, very beautiful profile. So
yeah,
I'd love to hear their thoughts on it.
This is Shara Kamal. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Shara Kamal. I am one of the owners. My husband, I believe, is on as well. To answer the question, and thank you for your time and considering this, we had initially thought that we would just address the house roof initially, and we'd spoken with Emily, and thank you for your time as well. We'd spoken with her about what the procedure was and what our options were. We did not want to go with the asphalt tile. We wanted something that was in keeping with the roofs in the neighborhood. And the barrel tile seemed to be a popular style in the area that was what we thought was similar to the garage. And so we did not investigate any other options aside from the Spanish tile that we were looking to pursue. We spoke with the HOA president, who told us that the Spanish barrel tile had been approved before. We shouldn't have any issues with it. So that's kind of where we stuck. We didn't, we liked that particular tile and the way it looked on other homes. So we did not explore other options. And I think time was of the essence as well. We are having some leaks inside, and we just invested a ton of money on the interior, and we're pressed for time in replacing the house roof. After speaking with Emily and recognizing that we probably wanted to do the house along with the garage, we are proposing that the house match the garage, and that's why we're before you today, to see if we can have both roofs match, and our preference would be the Spanish barrel tile.
Thank you.
I think our roofing contractor can speak to that as well, if he's on.
No, yeah. Hi, this is, oh, you still there? Great.
Yeah, I'm still there.
Great,
and
yeah.
Yeah, one of the issues with the existing...
I'm sorry, sir. Could you state your name and
yes.
your company?
My name is Blake Lang, and I'm from Foursquare Construction. We have an unlimited license with the IDPFR for roofing of this type. And what we notice is that the freeze-thaw cycles have caused a lot of damage on the existing roof. And we feel that the new Brava system that's proposed here is more adequate for this type of environment. And also with the main house and the garage matching, we've scouted the other barrel vaults in the area, and it seems to blend in with the neighborhood. And we feel that it would be much more aesthetically pleasing to match both houses with the similar barrel vaults to the general area nearby.
Thank you. Mr. Lang, so Commissioner Hughes had asked that question, was any other manufacturer or investigated in regard to the French barrel profile?
Yes, we have taken a look at in the marketplace to find and try to match existing. Unfortunately, I believe this installation is in the early 1900s. It's the original, so it's very hard to match existing. Of course, there could be custom molds that could be created, although there would be a special design mold fee, I would imagine, but we haven't pursued that because we feel this new Brava system has a very long life and is suitable for this climate. So we have not looked at any custom options to match the existing French tile that's currently on the garage roof.
Just a little, I believe you can get closer French tile profiles or French tile itself. It's still readily available in the area. It's not necessarily super cheap, which is a problem that that you're mentioning, but there are products that exist.
Hi, and if I may, this is Omari Kamal, the other owner. And I would just echo a sentiment of Char's. I mean, there's no question about the fact that the roof for the main house has to be replaced as soon as possible. And a large part of our interaction with Emily has been spent really trying to make the determination as to what we go with, because Emily has expressed us that a staff level of approval would have been sufficient to move from the asphalt shingle to another asphalt shingle or to the Brava tile, and that would have been fine. And it wasn't until just a few weeks before this meeting that Emily sent us another email saying that, well, actually no, it's important to us that it match. But for the majority of the time that we've been interacting, that hasn't been a predominant concern, and that we didn't want to have a mismatched tile, or we don't want to go back to a mismatched tile because we know that we could replace an asphalt shingle roof with another asphalt shingle roof, because that has to be done, and then just fix it or attempt to fix a few tiles. We've had a number of contractors, not just Blake, but even before him, we had a number of other opinions with people saying, no, this whole thing would need to be replaced in terms of the practicality of it, in terms of taking the tile off, replacing the infrastructure, and then putting the tile back on, in terms of the number of tiles that would break and needing to find those tiles to replace them and maintain the same look and feel and uniformity. It just, for all practical purposes, it can't be done. So with that said, there's the practicality of it and the matching of it. And for us, the bottom line is, we have the asphalt tile roof that absolutely needs to be replacing. And we believe that uniform look and feel will make a dramatic difference in terms of the overall look and feel of it. And there's there hasn't been any argument, I think, from anybody's part that Brava tile would be an upgrade from the asphalt shingle roof. And the only question is, can we have the garage match it?
Does the committee have any questions, further questions of the applicant? I guess the comment that I would probably have is, and I totally encourage matching the tiles of both the garage and the main house, and commend you for that, for wanting to do that. That's accolades to you for wanting to do that. I guess the question is, would you consider looking at the French tile or something of that nature that Emily has indicated that there are manufacturers that are out there that you could take a look at and at least price out and see what you think? And maybe that's a question for Blake, that, is that something that, I don't know how long that will take to reach out to another manufacturer.
It's something that we haven't found yet in the composite material that we're looking for here. And I have yet to find one that's similar, but we are all ears if you have a manufacturer for the French composite tile, so we could avoid the freeze thaw cycles. We have no problem working with a different manufacturer on this if it is available.
I'd be happy to see it.
But I will have to defer to the owners and the form and look of the aesthetics of the property.
Sure.
Yeah, and we'd be open certainly to looking, but again, just to make special note of the fact that
time is of the essence.
Yeah, exactly. You heard that, right? So it's the main house needs to be replaced as soon as possible, and we're certainly open to looking. And
which actually brings up a question of, I mean, Blake, you're the expert here. How much work can you do in the middle of winter?
Yeah, the unfortunate part is that we need above 40 degrees on average, I would say, to put the ice and water shield down. So we would be waiting a bit, and Chicago weather's a little bit funny, as you know, so it's hard to state a specific timeline.
Yeah, so basically, if you're lucky, end of March, probably to get that kind of consistency in weather.
Yeah.
So that's 2 months away. Emily, you said you had suggestions about a manufacturer. Is that something that you could?
Yeah, I looked into it briefly. The product that we had approved previously was one of them. I know that there had been some other ones that in previous, going through this, we've done a lot of clay roofs in Jackson Park Highlands. There have been some other names thrown around, so I'm happy to try and get all those together and send them along.
And just to comment on that is what we're trying to avoid is to go with clay, just due to the freeze and thaw cycles. We're mainly looking at this composite type that Brava is a manufacturer of.
I hear that.
Yeah. Okay, great.
So given that, what do we do with this staff recommendation?
May I suggest a motion? May I put a motion forward? Like just one more study with what options are available with the French, or like the suggested options. I know there's the cost consideration there, but I've been to Jackson. Your neighborhood is your historic district is so amazing. I just would encourage you to, given the time window, to consider this this other option. At least explore it and demonstrate finally that it was not a solution, but I would advocate strongly for that before committing for the next number of years to the Brava Spanish barrel tile that you're all very fond about right now. So one more study on recommended material by the staff.
Yes. So that's the motion on the table.
Okay.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
All right, second by Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Osman? Your vote? Yes?
Yes.
Commissioner Jakovich?
Yes.
And I am in agreement with that as well. That motion is unanimous. Emily and staff, you've got that motion correct?
I believe so. Just to clarify, so is that for the garage? What is the recommendation for the garage? I understand that that's the profile for the house, and if the clay tile cannot be restored, I understand that that's what we would like to see. But that first part of it, where because it's existing.
If I can attempt, my understanding was that the committee was in agreement that I'll look at a closer match to the original Spanish tile profile would be warranted. And everybody's in agreement that having the same profile on the house and the garage would be a good thing to proceed with. So it sounds like we are to take another look at finding a better match for the existing garage clay tile roofing in terms of profile, color, and finish, not the material. And that we would work with the applicant to provide as much information as we have from previous projects on other approvals so that they can consider those and then hopefully result in a better match. If it turns out that it's not possible, do we come back to the committee for a second look? That is the question.
I hope not.
I hope it will suffice. From my perspective, let me clarify this. From my perspective, it will suffice that it was explored. I wouldn't see the need to come back to the commission.
So staff can approve the new replacement of a better match.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and how do we? And this is Omari Kamal again. How do we qualify or quantify it even better? What's a better match? Because Emily, we have looked at this, and we did do our research, and Blake just made clear about our concern about the freeze-thaw cycle and our thoughts and philosophies about that and how we'd like to stick with that. So in the composite scene, we haven't seen much that would constitute, I know it's subjective, a good match with the French tile. But at what point do we say, okay, our search is exhausted, this is the best we have? And of course, we're taking into account the look and feel of it, but there's like we talked about, there's a cost factor as well. So, I mean, how does that determination ultimately get made?
So in the past, you saw the profile that the committee agreed was an acceptable match for the profile?
We had never seen that slide before today.
I had sent you the product though, or the name of the product that we had approved.
Yeah, but you didn't tell me it had been approved.
I'm happy to send it again.
Oh yeah. We didn't know it was approved before.
So that could be a benchmark. And if the committee would like to have, the staff, when we receive this information, can consult with one of the commissioners just to.
Commissioner Aguirre, would you be willing to?
I suppose since I put the motion forward, that's the ethical thing to do, right? So yes, sign me up, Emily.
Got it.
Yes, I'll be happy to, and I appreciate the effort. I understand, and from everyone here. So thank you for your effort on this.
So we will provide Commissioner Aguirre with the information and consult with her on the final product.
That would be yes.
In consultation with obviously the owner and their contractor.
Yes.
And then I would say that we're the appeal board. If for some reason there can't be an agreement, then it would come back to us.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. We're anticipating there will be a resolution on that. And we wish you the best. It's a beautiful home and really appreciate you wanting to take the effort to do something really spectacular with your roof. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, that was the last project on the agenda. With no further business, I'd like to request a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Commissioner Jakovich moves.
Sorry,
Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody? All right. Happy New Year, folks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Okay. Can I, Diana, can I call you really briefly?
Of course, yes.
Actually, I don't have a number. Would you